so much. So for about 6 or 7 years, I was a living statue. And actually right here in Harvard Square, I was a living statue for a long time. Many of you probably saw me. And if you don't know what a living statue is, you can imagine it, but most of you have probably seen them. I stood in the street, painted completely white, with a white wedding gown and a wig, and I held a pose until someone put money in a tin at my feet. And I did this, like in college and then coming out of college, and this was kind of ironic considering in my 20s, I struggled with an extreme conflict about whether I was a productive member of society. And I've thought a lot about that in the time between then and now. And I gave people a flower sometimes, and sometimes I would blow them a kiss. But it became very apparent to me that people didn't want that thing from me. And it was also obvious to me, people would often scream from cars that I should get a fucking job. and would kind of look at me with, with pity, as if I was a beggar. But most people giving me money, I could tell that they weren't giving me money out of pity. I could tell that there was something else going on. And most of the people who gave me money, they would stand there and we would have this incredible encounter with each other. Like a really beautiful human one-on-one exchange. And really old people and really lonely people, especially, I would sometimes look in people's eyes and feel like it was possible that I was the only person making eye contact with them, possibly for days or weeks. And you could just see that people were so happy to just be in that moment where we were looking at each other. And so the question now is, how does this relate to the music industry? At least that's the question for me. I think about that a lot. And as you know, I gave up that job and I started a band, and the band became really successful, and we signed with a major label and we put out CDs, and we didn't see any money from those CDs because of complicated music business things. And 10 years ago, you did not really have a choice. We couldn't put our music out for free. The music would go onto a CD, manufactured by the label, go to a store. You would have to go to the store and buy it. But this was like a Faustian contract that I knew I was getting into with the label, which is they would do that, they could keep all the money, we would get famous, and we would go out and we would tour. And we would make our money on tour and selling our t-shirts, which we did. And that worked until it stopped working. And the music industry sort of started to collapse. And the label basically stopped promoting the band, and I struggled to get off, and I got off. I got off the label a few months ago. And the question becomes, now, what do I do? And how do these things relate? And what I kind of want to do, and this is like a blanket statement for what I want to do with my career and in my life, is I want to get back on the box. But using the internet and as a musician. Because I have a deep belief that if artists have faith in their audiences, that it may not be every single passerby, but even if it's 1 in 50 people and 1 in 100 people who pass by, who like what you have to offer, you can make a living. And there's been a lot of steps in this direction. There's been Radiohead putting out their album for download, and there's been a lot of bands using Kickstarter and stuff like that. But I think it's really important that we see this trend not really as a gimmick, but as the way into the future. And there's an accountability there on the audience's part to shamelessly and joyfully give artists money. And the artist has to be accountable and shamelessly put out their hat. Because if they don't, and this whole exchange seems very seedy and very guilty, it won't move forward, if that makes sense. And because artists feel very, very guilty about asking for money, like it's this dirty, dirty thing. And there's this kind of warped idea that artists should be making money, just making art just kind of for the joy of it and the fun of it. But now with content being freely available, as we know, in the cloud, there has to be a shift, like a massive shift in the way the artists approach this and the fans and the audience approach it. And they both kind of have to step up to the plate. So with everyone kind of screaming that the music business is collapsing and oh my God, and everyone's torrenting and this is terrible for business, I think we should be celebrating the fact that while music is free and content is free, we also have the technology to, we have the technology for artists to stand up on their boxes, like in their virtual, street corner, in their place in the internet, and do that. And you as the audience, if you're moved by what an artist does, if you're moved by a song that I put out for free, you can put in $1. And you can know that you've had a very real exchange with me, with no middlemen, and no label, and no promoter, and no nothing. It's just you and me. It's like that moment, that connection. And then when you walk away, you know that you've also made it possible for that artist to stay there so that the next person walking down the street can have their own encounter. So, thank you.